Have you heard about this personal and professional podcast?
Coaching in Session with your host,
Michael Rearden.
Today we're going to be talking about your work, licensed professional counselor.
Yes, that's good.
And I basically just want to jump straight into it. I do want to talk about the rising mental health crisis we're having in America, especially. It can even be in the world. So with that, just kind of give us a brief introduction and then we will go from there.
Okay. So my name is Karen Iverson. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I have graduated with 2 master's degrees, one in clinical mental health counseling, and the other is in education, science education, technology, and mathematics. And I have been counseling for the past 2 to 3 years. I'm working as a licensed professional counselor.
Did you fall into this work because of a parent, because of a friend told you this is the go-to career, or was it something that you just knew from a very young age that you wanted to get into this profession and help people?
Yes, Michael. Well, it's actually a combination of all of those things. When I was a little girl, my dad was a psychiatrist, and I always wanted to be a doctor like my dad. He actually died a week before I turned 10, and so it made it even more of a passion to become a doctor. But when I went to when I went to college, I realized that medical school wasn't necessarily the right path for me. So it took me a lot of years of going from job to job to job after graduating from my college degree to get to the point where I realized I wanted to go back to school and become a counselor. And I did that by actually meeting with a career counselor and going over inventories and assessing what my gifts and talents were and where my path would be best utilized.
Any young folks today, children, teens, whatever you want to call it, they have no idea what they want to do with their life. You ask them what they want to do, they go, yeah, I don't really know. I didn't really give it much attention. And I'm just thinking, how did you not give it any attention at all? I know we're living in a social media driven world, so you're so distracted by every other thing besides you. But then later on in life, the only thing you can focus on is why you are not in a healthy state of mind. Is this conundrum that we're living in right now? One of the reasons can be technology. One of the reasons can be absent parenting. For example, if you have a parent who has to go to work, then they just kind of say, well, go to school, and the school raises you, the kids raise you, the peers and the teachers. And not every egg in the bunch is going to be like a good fit for the omelet. But you have to deal with it in our ever-changing world. What is something that you can tell the youth, especially, that if they are trying to figure out something for themselves, like their passions or their gifts or what they should do for a career, what is that direction and how do you help them do that?
Well, I think it does stem a lot from the parents not being there. So many kids are, like you said, in this home where both of their parents work, or they only have a single parent and that parent has to work. I think it's important for the schools to continue to do education for the students as far as what careers might be good for them, especially meeting with a career counselor. I know I did that when I was in high school, but even still, I think at a young age, you don't really know what you want to be. You don't really know what is the right path for you unless you have people guiding you. And I think a great thing to do is to test the waters and actually do an internship, or even you can do something called informational interviewing, where you literally meet with somebody who's in a field you might be interested in, and you ask them a whole series of questions to see if it's something you might enjoy as your but I think, really doing something like an internship or trying something out is a great way to go. There are a lot of schools now that have vocational programs within the high schools that the students can do, and they do get to do that, and they get to experience what that field is like.
When I left high school, I had a finance internship and I loved it. I was making money and I was like, okay, this is cool. I had a good team. Next year, I did an accounting internship, and I was in school for business finance at the time. That's what I was going to school for. And after that second internship of accounting, let me tell you, I said, no more. I can't do this. I'm only like 19. And I was able to say, it's not about the money. It's about, creating something more meaningful for myself. And I didn't necessarily know where I would end up. I just knew what direction I wanted to walk in. And we can't be afraid to walk in that direction, because I look at my past and I say, well, I could have skipped that. I could have skipped that. But then the reality is all of those things helped build me up to who I am today. Because if I didn't have those experiences and I can't talk about them, I wouldn't have lived them. I wouldn't know if they were for me or were not for me, because maybe I might have an inkling still. So, what, maybe I should get into accounting. Maybe I should get into finance. Good and well, I don't want to be there. I will thrive there, but it's not so much about where you're good at all the time, because you might be the best dishwasher in the world, but you can also be the best painter in the world. Which gift do you use? And we will often pick the thing that falls into circumstance. Like, this is easy, my mom gave me this job or my dad gave me this job, and it's easy. I get to still hang out with my friends. So people don't really pull or push themselves above and beyond. Bar is set very low. And that bar typically is where many people find unhappiness, because they're somewhere in their life, they're like, I feel stuck. Like, I know I can do more. I know I can be more, but I'm in this low level of living right now, when there's so much more potential for me. When we start to have that aspect in our mind, that there is a greater purpose for us, that there is more potential, that there's this latent power within us. How can someone, or how do you push that or help that person nurture that gift, that passion, and help them develop it so they can one day want to present it to the world?
I think it's really starts at the home. It starts with the parents, and having the parents really encouraging the kiddo, this is the avenue where you seem most interested and you seem to have your most gifts and talents, and encouraging them to explore that, and like you said, when you did the accounting, that you were good at it, but it wasn't where your passion lay, and that's similar to me in that, when I wanted to go to medical school, I wanted to be a doctor, but I didn't realize I could be a doctor as a counselor without the medical degree and without prescribing medications. So I think in combination with the parents, it is good to see a counselor. You can see a career counselor who will help you, figure out what the little nuances are between the different fields and the different careers. And sometimes I really do think you do just have to try it out, like you did with the accounting, and get to the point where you've realized, what? I'm good at this, but my passion isn't there. And so take that as a grain of salt and go with your next step and move forward from there.
True. But we still have to kind of to the hard pill to swallow type of bit, because we can tell people all day, like, yeah, you can do this and do that. But then the reality is, how many people will? How many people will get help? How many people will, New Year's is coming, right? Will commit themselves to change, because everyone says, I'm going to make this best year, or this year my best year yet. But something happens, right? We get in our way, something gets in our way. Like, what is that mindset, or what is that, feeling that many people are living in, and they just can't do it? Even though we give them the information, we tell them how to do it, it's like there's a roadblock. Even if we give them the path, we give them the books, we give them the websites, and, we want to urge you to take action. And, like, that's what I'm looking for. Like, how can we get the people to finally say, enough's enough?
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it has to come from internal motivation, and instilling that in, the individual, that, they need to take control of their own passion and their own interest. And, it's very easy to fall into habits. And with New Year's resolutions, yes, we make the New Year's resolution, and 14 days later, 5 days later, 3 days later, we don't follow through with it because we've fallen back into our same old ruts that we were in before. And so, what I like to do is really give myself an incentive. So, for example, like I'll create a list, and this will be my to-do list. And these are all the things that I want to accomplish. And every day I'll cross off the things I accomplish. And the next day I'll rewrite the list. And you can do this in the evenings so that you do it before you go to bed. And then you're all set for when you wake up in the morning to hit the road running and work on that list, for example. Now, granted, with that list, I do find a lot of times that there are many things that I don't get to, and they just keep getting pushed back day to day to day. So it's a matter of prioritizing, what is important to you and really saying, I'm going to accomplish these things and I'm going to work on them. But that, again, is internally motivated. We can't tell somebody, well, this is the perfect thing for you and here are your books and go at it, because if they don't want to do it, they're not going to succeed at it.
Would someone raise their levels of internal motivation?
That's a really good question, and I think it really varies on the individual person. I think some people are motivated, for example, by finances, so you might say, okay, well, if I accomplish this, then I'm going to reward myself with a dinner out at Morton's or somewhere, or other people are motivated by so that person might need their mom or their best friend to say to them every day, how are you doing at your goals? Did you accomplish this? What did you accomplish today? So I think a lot of that internal motivation has some external quality to it, because we're made to be in community, rather than an isolated individual. And if we work in pairs, for example, like if we have a friend to work with, let's say we're both, 18-year-olds and we're wanting to start our career. Well, we can work with our best friend and motivate one another. And so when today I have motivation, well, you might not have motivation. And the next day it might be the reverse, and so we kind of keep pushing each other along, and tapping into the one day when your motivation is high, but also tapping into your friend when your day is low.
True. I remember when I was in college and my cousin and I, we would go to the gym together. And some days it was just that. I didn't feel like going, and some days he didn't feel like going. It was more me than him, though. So he was always the kind of the gym guy. Is like, all right, let's go to the gym. We got to go work out. And I'm over there trying to take shortcuts. But what I learned is like the discipline aspect, right? Going to the gym when I'm supposed to be going to the gym. Even if I don't feel like it, I know I might not give 100%, but the fact that I'm there and doing things that I didn't want to do, I get as close to that 100% as I can.
Yes.
We fail to understand sometimes it's okay sometimes to give 50% because maybe 50% is all you got.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we understand 100 is the goal, so let's work toward that.
Mm-hmm.
But if we got 50% today, like let's do that. I was it was either a book or another coach. They were talking about how like marriages, and they kind of figure out like what they're going to do today. And typically the today is who's going to take care of the kids, because both parents worked and they're exhausted after work. And then I think the mom or the wife was saying, hey, I got like 10%. And then the husband was like, Jesus, you got only 10%. But then he was like, all right, I'll cover the other 90. So he was able to cover. And it's not only just one side on her side, because he might be, 5% the next day or the next week. And then she's going to cover 95%. Mm-hmm. So, there's that teamwork, power that we can utilize. But we have learned and we have become indoctrinated in a sense to do it by ourselves. Right? Think of like going to school. The desks are by themselves most of the time. Of course, if you have a teacher who, does the group stuff, here and there, but it's, far and few between. If you just like think back at your schooling, how many times were in classes or grades did you have the desks together? Most of the time they were separated. because number one, it's easier for classroom management. So why would a teacher give themselves more problems? And then number two, it's all about testing. It's like, we want you to do the work, not ask your friend for their answers or to do things like that. So we become very independent. The problem with that is we were not created to be independent. We were created to work together and to be a community, right? They say it takes a village, it takes a tribe to raise a child, but it also takes a team. It takes, someone else to help you through those tough times, those tough moments in your life. Maybe I always say, like if you're going through it, maybe someone's going through a hard time in their life, maybe grief. Maybe they are confused about career, like as we were talking about earlier. And not talk to somebody, right? Because there are going to be people that can help you, that can give you some guidance. But it just feels like, well, let me ask Google. Maybe Google knows best. Maybe ask Jeeves. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. Or maybe ask my peers, and like they have all of this worldly experience that they can instill some wisdom onto you. But we have so much more room for growth, yet we kind of live in the limits of what we see rather than what can be. And like we live in our house, right? Like we have our house and our walls and our windows. But if you go outside, there's a whole world out there. And many people don't even realize that that world is waiting for them. It's like, well, let me get home, let me leave work, rush home so I can be home and I can feel safe and I can feel secure. But, safety and, security and comfort, or, they're going to be the anchor to, you fulfilling your dreams. So now that we, understand that we can be a proponent to our failure, but we can also be a proponent to our success.
Mm-hmm.
How can we start, or how can we stop doing the things that are not beneficial for us? For example, like not finding someone who can help us through those moments when we're not feeling as motivated.
Well, I think, like you said, it is the village that raises the child, and it's the teamwork. And I think, really is different nowadays in the respect that, people do seek out counselors more than they used to before. There used to be a big stigma against it. And there still is a stigma against it, but it's not as severe, especially since the COVID years. More people are suffering from mental illnesses, and more people are needing to reach out to somebody. And sometimes they don't feel comfortable reaching out to their family members, or comfortable, having a lot of friends. Maybe they only have a few friends. And so if they can get hooked in with a counselor, that's somebody that will give them an unbiased, reflection back of what they're going through, so that they can help, process through whatever they're, it's important when you do seek out a counselor that you make sure that you're connecting with the counselor, because not every counselor is the right counselor for you. It's not that they're necessarily a bad counselor. They just might not be the one you're connecting with strongly enough to support you in your needs. But I mean, it's really, I think that the support needs to come from, the friends and the family and the counselors and the school. And it's all of those people that have to help provide that support.
Then we have the reality that many people are just still afraid to ask for help, because maybe, they just didn't have anyone growing up to ask for help, because who were they going to ask? And they just learned helplessness to not ask. So they have to almost get over this fear of asking for help, because it's almost like embarrassment. Like, I feel embarrassed because I have to come to somebody for help.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever put that within your clients, because what I have found from, just doing coaching work is they feel embarrassed to have to come and get help, maybe with their marriage, their life or career, whatever it is. Like, they feel like I am inadequate because I can't do this by myself. But then, as we were saying, it's not so much about doing it by yourself. It's about creating that team, like creating that unison. But it's still something that someone has to get over.
Mhm.
So this stigma of doing it by themselves developed. It's like a learned helplessness
Mhm.
where in school we're basically going through it. It doesn't have to happen in school. It can happen in the household too. Like maybe mom or dad is like, do it yourself, do it yourself. And sure enough, the kid is like, okay, I guess I got to do it myself. And then so they grow up thinking I have to always do it myself. Same thing in school. I got to do it myself. So with this, understanding, is there a better way to raise a child, to give a mindset of working together to adults? Because we do have this societal norm, basically what it is, do it yourself, figure it out yourself, rather than let's figure this out together.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's also a cultural aspect to it as well. Different cultures feel more like they have to do it by themselves, and more that they're not supposed to confide in somebody else that's outside of the family if they have a need. I think that there's also the aspect of that, we get to this point where we're saying, okay, I have to do it by myself. Okay, I have to do it by myself. And we get to the point of breakdown, even, to the point where we just are miserable because we don't know what's going on. And sometimes, unfortunately, it goes to that point when they finally will reach out and say, you know what, I need help from somebody else and I can't do this by myself. But it really has to be, like you're saying, a societal thing where we shift the focus and the thoughts of the society, more engage in that idea that we do need help and it's okay to have help. Rather than instilling in our kiddos that you have to do this by yourself, create this environment where we say, let's work together, let's do teamwork. We're in so many different fields and careers when we get older where we do work in teamwork, not as in isolation. So it's more an aspect of, instilling that in our kids, that it's okay to work with somebody else because that's might be how we get the job done. And in fact, it talks about how two people are better than one because one person, if they fall down, well, who's going to be there to help pick them up? Whereas if we have somebody with us, and you don't have to be married, and there are a lot of people that are single out there, but it could be a friend, it could be a family member, just somebody else that you can get support from and help you through, whatever tough battle you're fighting with.
Back when I was doing my master's, and the teacher put us in a group. It was a group of 4 total, including myself. And I had one other teacher. She was already teaching in the schools, but she was going for her master's. And let me tell you, like, she was solid because she already had the world experience and she knew how to get things done and be organized. But the other 2 who were just kind of going with the flow of things, it made that group terrible, miserable. And it was challenging for us. I remember, like, we went to the teacher, was like, hey, like, what do we do if, members who don't want to do their part? And basically she was like, you just have to figure out how you can work it out. And you got to basically lead everyone to, getting their part done.
Mm.
It was a whole endeavor because you would think, you're an adult now. You should be able to, especially in the master's program, you should be able to understand the work, accept the work, do the work, and commit to the group.
Yes.
But I also found in other groups, there was slackers,
Yes.
per se. And it was just so interesting because it seemed like everyone just had a little problem and they're like, I'd rather do this by myself. They say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right? It's an African proverb. And I started to think about that because I can do everything by myself for the podcast. I can do everything by myself. How much can I do in my day? I only have 24 hours. So I have to delegate some work. Of course, your mental health is not something you should just delegate to someone like, hey, you take care of my mindset. You take care of my happiness and all my problems. Like, it's something that we have to, do the work for. It's like going to the gym. per se, but it's like a mental gymnastics.
Mm-hmm.
You might pay a trainer and say, okay, I want you to work out for me. And that trainer might work out, but you're not going to see any results. The trainer is going to see the results.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be the people to do the work. We have to be able to take those actions. And it could be the most challenging thing to take the action because the fear of failure, maybe you don't want to commit to something that's too much because you feel overburdened already. Maybe you're so close to burnout and you're like I'm trying to do the right thing, but there's just so much buzz or static in my life that I just can't focus. So my final question to you is, we're getting into realm of a person not only committing to themselves for better health, better mind, but also a more clairvoyant state of being where they can see almost into the future. They're like, if I do this, this is the result. For example, if I eat a salad, and say it loosely because some people, should not eat salads, but if I eat a salad, I'm going to lose weight, right? So like we put one and two together. Or if I stop eating fast food, I'll lose weight. Or if I go to the gym, I'll get big muscles. So like there is a cause and effect. And I have found, especially with the generation of, especially some Gen Z, critical thinking, common sense, they're, emerging, but they need a little bit of help. They need some guidance, some, little nudge in the right direction. How can we help people become more forward thinking, not only about today, but maybe in 5 years or 10 years? Because most people won't get mental health problems or see a doctor or deal with mental health problems or see a doctor until something is broken. Like literally is broken. Like, oh, I got diabetes. Oh, I got, heart problems. Oh, my mind is so foggy. I'm full of anxiety. I'm full of stress. They wait until that moment rather than saying, wait, see the signs. Let me take action today.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier with internal motivation, but I think a lot of it has to do with goal setting and teaching everybody how to goal set, because we need to say, okay, what do we want to achieve in 5 years? And we take the time to think and dream and allow ourselves to come up with those visualizations and those dreams of where we want to be. And then we take that dream of the 5 years and we take it to 3 years and say, where do we want to be in 3 years? Well, what is that going to look like? And what are all the details that we can write down? And then you take it down to a year, you take it down to 9 months, you take it down to 6 months, 3 months, and then you bring it down to 1 month, and you even bring it down to 1 week. And what you need to do is incorporate in it all of the details of what you need to do to accomplish that goal. So besides just having that vision, you have to break it down and say, well, in order to accomplish this, I need to do these 3 steps first. And in order to do those 3 steps, I need to do these 2 steps. And in order to get those 2 steps done, well, first of all, I have to make this phone call, and really saying that these are the exact things we need to do to accomplish our goals and our dreams. And, once we have that laid out, again, it goes back to what I was saying before with those lists you can make every night, and you make it a 1-day goal and say, okay, well, this week I'm accomplishing these things. So in order to do that tonight, I need to write down these 5 things I'm going to do tomorrow. And it's important not to have too many goals, because if we have too many goals, then we just get overwhelmed. So if you can cut them down to like the top 3 goals, for example, and then really work towards that. And that can give you some of that motivation and some of that desire, because you're wanting to accomplish something that you can visualize and you can see it and you can imagine it. And so that can give you some of that insight to get going.
Stephen Covey, he's the author of many self-help books and things like that. One of the books I'm talking about is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Mm-hmm. And he basically says, begin with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. And as long as we understand the goal, we can build a path toward it. And of course, that path is going to be riddled with blind spots, with potholes, with booby traps. And that is where you need a coach, you need a counselor, you need a guide, someone there to help navigate if you through that, because yes, you can go through it and learn from trial and error, but the more errors you have, the less likely you're going to motivate it. Man, we're talking about that internal motivation to keep on going, because how many times can a person get knocked down and say, okay, I'm staying down this time? I don't know, right? It depends on you, depends on so many factors, but we always have the option to get back up. It's just that sometimes we say, you know what, I had enough. So if you're listening to the podcast, I know you haven't had enough yet. If you are, ready to begin anew, I know you haven't had enough yet. You just have to, give yourself that push, and that push is toward help. Like seeking someone to work with, not only to do it by yourself, because I know I have a lot of people who listen to the podcast and they're like, I'm gonna do it by myself. And sure enough, you are dear and near to my heart. But I encourage you to, just reach out to Karen, be a consultation. It could just be a social media message or something like that. Begin the conversation. If you have any questions, I'm sure she'll be more than happy to answer, to give you some insight, and then even give you some next steps that you could possibly be taking, because that is what we need today. We need not only the answers for everything, but the steps for us to figure out the answers for ourselves. So as we begin to wrap up, Karen, I would love to get some final words from you, and then for you also to tell the audience where they can find you.
Sure. I just really think that we can make it through this world. It's just a matter of taking one step after the next and continuing. And like you said, Michael, there are going to be days where we hit those potholes and we go backwards. But, to just keep getting up every morning and moving one step closer to your goals, and like you said with Stephen Covey, have the end goal in mind. I really just firmly believe that everybody, really does have their answers inside of them. They just might need somebody like myself, or a coach, to help process through them. And if anybody does want to reach out to me, they can reach me at info@KarenEiverson.com. My website is also KarenEiverson.com. And if they want to get a free visualization, they can go to that website, as well as a test for anxiety, depression, and mania. They can take those tests if they feel like they would like to do that. And they can do that at that same website, KarenEiverson.com, and that would be /mental health.
Who's your favorite social media that you use?
Instagram.
Okay. Because I know some people, they always say, we want to know their social medias, not only their website. I will definitely put the website in the description box below, but people just love following, connecting. I have found they like to be in the shadows for a little bit. So they'll shadow watch all your content, and they might like something here or there. And then that's when they reach out. So it takes a little bit of nurturing sometimes to get people acclimated. It's almost like you can either keep taking steps into the pool and suffer all, each step of the way, or you can jump just, head first, dive in and get totally immersed. But it just depends on the person. So I definitely will put those links in the description box below so people can check you out, the website, and then also the Instagram. And then from there, they can, inquire about, seeking any counseling help if they need it, or if they just have any questions, like I said earlier. Now, I do want to thank you, Karen, for coming on, spending some time and talking about your work briefly.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I'm really honored to be on your podcast.